Was Tuesday a trade deadline failure for the Miami Dolphins? They made 0 trades despite having multiple players that multiple teams were interested in. We will discuss that. Plus, man, are they watching as an AFC East rival is doing everything they hoped they would be doing right now in terms of a rebuild? We got a lot to discuss today. We'll go over a lot of the major trades from the day, plus talk a little bit of Tua, etc., etc. Smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's go ahead and get into this.
You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score. Minkah field down the near side, that open touchdown. The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown. He's going deep. He's got it for the touchdown again. Touchdown.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. And we are back here for another one as the trade deadline has come and gone for the Miami Dolphins. And a trade deadline that we thought would be much more fruitful ended up not being the case. As on Tuesday, the Miami Dolphins made 0 moves despite there being significant interest in multiple players. Now, I had a Patreon and a channel member update that came out late last night. What I was hearing yesterday was that Minkah and Chubb, I knew, and I told my Patrons and channel members that I knew the Cowboys had checked in on both of them, and we'll get into why that matters in a second here. What I was hearing about Minkah was the Miami Dolphins, they wanted no worse than a 4th round pick. I had heard the Patriots, the Rams, and the Jags had checked on him as well as the Cowboys. But with Chubb, I knew that the Cowboys were interested, but I also knew that the 49ers and the Ravens had checked in on Chubb, and the 49ers seemed like they were serious, and nothing came to fruition. Now, I'm not surprised, and we'll get into, the Jalen Waddle discussion. I was hearing yesterday that the offensive assets were just so expensive to try and pry away from Miami. I'm not so much shocked on that, but I am shocked where we are sitting here with the defense. So before we get into everything with the Dolphins, let's talk about what did happen on trade deadline day, because there were a lot of trades. All right, they went down. There was a last minute deal the Saints sending Trevor Penning to the LA Chargers. Jakobi Myers got traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Rashid Shaheed got traded from New Orleans to Seattle. Draymond Jones got traded to Baltimore. Logan Wilson got traded to Dallas to start the morning off. But the big trades that everyone are talking about are the Jet deals. The Jet deals are what everyone is talking about right now. Right? Like that's just where we're at. So let's talk about these Jets deals, all right? So, now, Breece Hall did ask to be traded today, and they did not trade him. They also got calls on Garrett Wilson Jr., but they weren't willing to trade Garrett Wilson Jr. Now, let's talk about the Jets. Remember, the Jets loaded up today. So the Jets traded Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts for a 2026 first, a 2027 first, and a Donnie Mitchell. That is a ridiculous cost, in my opinion, for Sauce Gardner, the king of the holds. I mean, that is like a ludicrous cost at all. Like, I can't believe someone gave up two first round picks and then a receiver they took in the first 3 rounds last year for Sauce Gardner. That is wild to me. Now, the Colts are clearly all in. I mean, that's where the Colts are right now. The Colts are all in. They're trying to make a push. They see the potential with this team here, and they're just trying to go all in, and they're trying to make a push. I thought that was a wild package they were saying. I like the Colts giving up 2 first-round picks for Sauce. That's like, man, you got Daniel Jones as your quarterback. What if he falls off the cliff and you need another quarterback? You just paid to move up for a quarterback in a draft, and you got Sauce Gardner. That is crazy to me. But hey, I mean, the Jets are reaping the benefits, are they not? And then the other big trade for the Jets today, Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams got traded on the same day to the Cowboys, which I thought was absolute wild. And what the Cowboys, they sent a 2nd-round pick in 2026 and a 2027 first-round pick in Mazi Smith. Remember that big defensive tackle taken from Michigan recently? For Quinnen Williams. Like, there's still upside and a potential ceiling with Mazi Smith. They gave up a 2026 second and a 2027 first. Like, the Jets did everything that Stephen Ross was probably hoping the Miami Dolphins did. And now you got to ask yourself, did the Jets just guarantee whoever they want in this draft? Did they, all of you that want for Mendoza, all of you that want Dante Moore, all of you that want Lenore Sellers, all of you that want Ty Simpson, did the New York Jets just guarantee whoever they want? Because you look at the Jets right now, think about this. The Jets have 2 firsts and 2 seconds this year, and then they have 3 firsts in 2027. Now, albeit, this is not the first time they've had those many draft picks, right? By any stretch of the imagination. But they've got 5 first-rounders. I mean, if they don't want to take a quarterback and they want to wait till next year for Julian Sayin to come out, I mean, and they're putting themselves in tank mode. This team could end up with Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith in next year's draft and just build everything out this year. And the Jets also do have cap space too. That's the other thing. So this is the second time in 5 years the Jets have accumulated 5 first-round picks in 2 drafts. Now, they had to trade away 2 all-pros this time to acquire all that. But, I mean, the Jets will screw it up somehow. But, I mean, this is... They did everything the Miami Dolphins wanted to do. Let's be real here. They did everything that the Miami Dolphins wanted to do. And they could go for Mendoza, Moore, Simpson, or Sellers, whoever they want this year, or next year. They could just wait around and they could legitimately go after Jeremiah Smith to pair with Garrett Wilson, 2 Ohio State receivers, and then Julian Sayin. Because I've told you, Julian Sayin is my early QB1 for next year's draft. I think Mateer will go back. I think Sellers will go back. Arch is coming out. I think Sam Levitt will go back. So next year's quarterback class is looking like it could be something really good. And they're going to have their pick of the crop, and they could probably add Jeremiah Smith to that if they wanted to with all the picks they have. Because this year, if they don't want to go all in on a quarterback, they could trade back and accumulate even more for this year and next year. That's the other issue you're at, too. They could accumulate even more. The prices they got back, the Jets, was insane. Like, I mean, who would say no? You know, I know they're also trying to move Jermaine Johnson today. They're also trying to get rid of Jermaine Johnson, so they would add even more. You know? But, I mean, you're looking at how all these other teams are moving, whether they're winners or losers, how they're moving at the deadline, and we don't move like this. You know? Like, Trevor Penning. The Chargers got him for a 6th-round pick. Right? They lose Joe Alt, and they turn around and they go get Trevor Penning. Now, remember, he hasn't lived up to the hype, but Penning was drafted 19th overall in 2022. And they got him for a 6th-round pick. You know? It just, teams are moving properly. It's crazy. And we're sitting here like, okay. Jakobi Myers, he went to the Jags for a 4th and a 6th-round pick. So if Jakobi got a 4th and a 6th, you know for Waddle they're asking for a ton. Right? Wasn't really anything crazy, but you see teams moving. Like the Jets properly tanking. You look at the Chargers when they're winning, properly adding. You know, not giving up the house, but properly adding to try and give themselves a fighting chance at the playoffs. And we're here stuck in the middle, stuck in that purgatory. It's just wild, man. It's just, this is where we're at. So let's get into some of this stuff. We got a lot to talk about here. Okay. So we got a lot to go on here. Before we do, I do want to shout out the sponsor of today's video. That, of course, is Sleeper, right? If you think you know football, then try to turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app. It's the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app. Pick more or less on your favorite players with more stats than any other daily fantasy app. Just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick from predicted stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code Finside. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational over 25 states. Go ahead, check out Sleeper today, and use my promo code. You don't even got to make a deposit. Just sign up, use my promo code, and you will get a free $20 deposited into your account for you to use right now. All right, so shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the video. Let's keep it going, though. So let's get into some Dolphins news and the rumblings that were abuzz today. All right, I'm going to remind you, because I know that we got over 350 people in here. The numbers are growing, so I'm going to remind you. I had an update that came out from Patrons and channel members yesterday. I heard multiple teams were interested in Minkah and Chubb. All right. I heard the Cowboys had checked in on both. This is what I put out yesterday. I heard that the Cowboys had checked in on both. But I also heard that in terms of Minkah, the Patriots, Rams, and Jags had checked in. And the Ravens and the 49ers checked in on Chubb, with the 49ers being very, very interested. So let's show you, that boy Pretty Ricky was out doing his thing today. So this is how the day started. We thought we were going to get off to a good start. All right. We thought we were on the way. So this is what happened, right? Right here, you can see Pretty Ricky put out a tweet this morning. 2 of the 3 destinations were destinations I told you guys were coming. So he said right here, sounds like the Dolphins will be moving Bradley Chubb today. The Cowboys and 49ers are the most likely destinations. Both teams had reached out to the Bengals about Trey Hendrickson. So right here this morning, we are hearing from Pretty Ricky, who's been damn good. He's batting over 90%. We were hearing this morning right there 2 of the 3 teams that I told you about last night to my patrons and channel members, the Cowboys and the 49ers. And I heard the 49ers were very, very interesting. They're very, very interested in acquiring Bradley Chubb. Now let's go further on to Chubb here. I heard some wild stuff today. I heard from one person, we were asking for a 4th or better. Then I heard from someone else that we wanted a 3rd round pick for Bradley Chubb. I was hearing some wild things regarding the asking price for Bradley Chubb today privately. And from multiple people. And if you're a Patreon or channel member and you saw my update yesterday, I said I don't expect anything more than a 5th round pick. And if they did get that, bravo, but there ain't no way. I heard from 2 different people we wanted a 4th round pick or better, and one specifically told me we wanted a 3rd. That's crazy. Instead of just taking, because here's the thing, Bradley Chubb has no guaranteed money left on his deal. You're going to lose him for nothing because you're going to cut him. You're basically going to have to cut him or give him new money, and they ain't giving him new money. And all that money you ate, right, with the Jalen Phillips deal, right? Because the Miami Dolphins took on more than $5 million, right? It didn't cost the Eagles very much at all, right? The Dolphins converted $5.1255 million of his remaining base salary into a signing bonus, meaning the Dolphins are paying that, and the Eagles had to, they're only paying $1.5 million. By the way, Jalen Phillips is going with number 50 in Philadelphia. So the Eagles got him for $1.5 million. We had to pay over $5.1 million to get that 3rd round pick. If you would have offloaded Chubb, you basically would have offloaded that like $5 million. I mean, you would have offloaded, like almost $4 million of that $5 million. Right? You would have had like $4.5 million of that $5 million would have been offloaded with Chubb, but instead you're sticking with him. And for what? What is the point of sticking with Bradley Chubb right now? Can someone explain this one to me? Take the 5th rounder and move on with your life. But instead, here we are. Now you're stuck with Bradley Chubb. And for what? What do we got to prove? We're 2-7. Like, come on. I just think this is and we're going to get to a big question here in a second after we get done with Minkah. But, you needed to, I think not offloading Bradley Chubb was a massive mistake and a massive failure by this front office and those people in charge right now. Whoever is in charge of making decisions, you dropped the ball with this. You dropped the ball big time with this. And it's not like Chop needs the mentorship. Bradley Chubb wasn't around very much last year, and how did Chop do? He did actually better. Teron Armstead was the better mentor. So I don't get it. But we're not done dropping the ball. All right, let's talk about Minkah Fitzpatrick. Let's get back to Pretty Ricky, because he had another tweet about an hour after that tweet about Chubb came out. Look at this right here. The Cowboys have an offer to the Dolphins for Minkah Fitzpatrick, but that would be the Cowboys' backup plan if they can't land a pass rusher. Now, obviously, the Cowboys went ahead and landed Quinnen Williams. So that is probably why they said, yeah, we're moving off. We're not making the move. But what did I tell you yesterday, Patrons and channel members? I said the teams that I heard had checked in on Minkah were the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Rams, and the Jags. And this is how serious it got with one of them. Now, let's go even further. I heard and I reported to channel members and Patreon members, I heard yesterday that they wanted no worse than a 4th round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's what the rumbling I was hearing was, that they wanted no worse than a 4th round pick. And I had heard that from multiple people. Just like what I heard about Chubb today. So the Miami Dolphins had a chance to move 2 pieces, and they dropped the ball on both of them. I'm also shocked that they just didn't take what they could have got for Rasul Douglas, because I know there was interest out there for Rasul Douglas. Now, with Matthew Judon, the Miami Dolphins were trying to offload Matthew Judon, but that was a pretty lukewarm market. That market really wasn't popping off the way, I guess the Dolphins anticipated. Let's be honest, the Dolphins overplayed their hands. That's what happened. The Dolphins overplayed their hands. They overvalued these players. Like, if the Cowboys are all in on getting Quinnen Williams, you're telling me you couldn't have got them to take Minkah from you? Bradley Chubb. What's the point of Bradley Chubb? What is the point of Bradley Chubb? Why is he here? A 5th round pick at this point would have been a win. So when all's said and done, you traded your most valuable asset that you were making available, because like I said, and we'll get into here, the offensive assets weren't really available when you know what the price was. They knew they wasn't going to be matched. So all you get is a 3rd round pick on a guy you spent a top 20 pick on. Now, I do think Jalen Phillips needed to be traded. If Jalen Phillips goes and pops off with the Eagles, people are going to be like, oh, it's a bad move. I'm going to say that's just Dolphins. Can't stay healthy with us. Can't reach his potential with us, but goes somewhere else, stays healthy and reaches her potential. That's just so Dolphins. Now, when the trade deadline hit at 4 p.m., we were all expecting some moves to be made. They weren't at all. And this is what was said by Adam Schefter. Despite getting calls for Jalen Waddle and Bradley Chubb, the Dolphins did not make another deal before the deadline and opted to hold on to both. Further into Jalen Waddle. This is what Jordan Schultz tweeted out. The Broncos and a few other teams reached out to and monitored the Dolphins about Jalen Waddle, but no deal will get done. Miami's asking price was simply too high per sources. Jordan Schultz had tweeted out, if any deals get done, the two teams I'm watching today for potential holy crap trades are the Seahawks and the Broncos. Why does this matter? Because my friend and friend of the channel, Pretty Ricky, he tweeted out that he thought his holy crap moment, if it went down, would be the Broncos trading for Jalen Waddle. So the Broncos were legitimately in on Jalen Waddle. You got Ricky reporting it. You got Jordan Schultz reporting it. But, I had heard that they wanted like damn near astronomical for Jalen Waddle. Everyone's talking about 1+1+. Yeah, 1+ multiple picks. They wanted a lot for Jalen Waddle. That's just what the fact of the matter was. They wanted a lot for Jalen Waddle. And that wasn't going to change anytime soon. Jalen Waddle they believe in that building. He's a legitimate number one receiver. I mean, let's be real. Since Tyreek went down, he has been. I mean, go back and look at all of the games Jalen Waddle's played, and then go count how many games he's had with more than 10 targets. This guy puts up 80 to 120 yards on like 6 to 8 targets. Most of the time, like 6 targets. And you got to remember, Ross is a business mind. Braden Shore is the money guy. They look at the wide receiver market. They see what wide receiver ones are being paid. They look at the contract value of Waddle. You would have had to give up a Sauce type of deal. If Sauce is getting 2 first-round picks and a Donnie Mitchell, because why? He's viewed as a top corner in the NFL, but he also has, the main reason, it's not even that he's viewed as a top corner because it's very hit or miss. Some people don't think he is. Some people do think he is. The big reason why is because of Sauce's contract. That's the issue. That's why they had to pay so much, was because of the extension. Same thing with Quinnen Williams. The reason why they had to pay so much was because Quinnen Williams still has 1 more year left. He's due $22 million next year, and then you're going to have to sign him. But you're getting at least the rest of this season and another year. Waddle, that extension hasn't even kicked in yet. So they weren't going to give him away. They weren't going to give him, and I kept telling people, it's like, that's just not going to happen. No one wanted to listen to me. Everyone wanted to be dead set in their way that, just trade him, just get rid of him. I kept telling you that ain't happening. Especially for all of you that want to draft a quarterback. Why would you take away a weapon from the guy you want to draft? We already got to worry about building out the offensive line if you want to draft a quarterback. Now you got to worry about going and finding another receiver? You're right back to square one. Made no sense. Made 0 sense. A team was going to have to pay. And quite simply, no one was stepping up to the plate to pay. This is why I said to Patrons and channel members yesterday, these offensive assets were our best offensive assets were never really available. They were never really available. They had prices attached to them that we knew teams weren't going to. You know what it would have cost to get Achane, who's on a rookie deal and one of the best weapons in the NFL? I mean, we've already went over what Jalen Waddle would cost. That would have cost the exact same. They wouldn't trade Patrick Paul. That's a franchise left tackle on a rookie contract. They weren't going to trade that. Sure, you can have Jalen right now. That was known. I know the Chiefs a couple weeks ago were sniffing around him, but Rashee Rice came back. Kareem Hunt has settled in as wide receiver 1. And McDaniel crushed any trade value you thought you could get for Wright. Didn't use him enough since he got healthy. That's just the usage and the lack of film. Just what was the point? What would you got, a 7th round pick? You got to showcase assets if you want to move them. So, listen, and let's have this conversation. Let's have this conversation now. All right? I want to sit down and I want to have this conversation with you guys right now. And you know where I'm at. You all know exactly where I'm at. 78% of you have voted, over 253 votes. 78% of you have voted. Was the trade deadline a failure for the Dolphins? 78% of you have voted yes. So I'm going to ask you this now. I want you to put it in the chat. I want you to put it in the comment section whenever you're watching this. What was the point of firing Chris Grier for this? What was the point? Did Champ Kelly do anything impressive? Did that collaborative effort between Ross and those guys and Silman and Garfinkel do anything impressive? You would have been better off telling Chris Grier, listen, Chris, sell these players off or you're fired. You would have been better off putting the pressure and the Bunsen burner to Chris Grier's behind by saying, yo, trade these players. Here's a list. Trade them. Get value back or you're fired. You would have been better off doing that. Trading these players, your job hinges on that. You would have been legitimately better off doing that. At this rate, you were just better off waiting until the end of the season. If this is what the result was going to be from firing Chris Grier before the deadline, you were better off waiting after you might as well have fired him at 4:01 p.m. when no trades were announced. If this was what the deal was going to be. This was giving the fan base some blood with no plan behind it whatsoever. We were talking about this before Chris Grier was fired. Barry Jackson was reporting what? Before Chris Grier was fired, he was reporting that the trade deadline would go beyond the desk of Chris Grier. It would involve Ross, Garfinkel, and Silman. And you could obviously assume Shore is going to be involved. Okay? Chris Grier has more experience with trades and more experience with his GMs to get those players shipped off than Champ Kelly does. They're going to look at this rookie GM and they're going to try and fleece him. You know, reports were put out. Well, Chris Grier didn't want to trade off players. Chris Grier didn't want, blah, 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 blah. Well, Champ Kelly sure looks like he didn't want to trade off players. Like, again, another move by a bad franchise with no plan in place. You would have been better off saying, Chris, fire these guys. Trade these guys. If you don't, by 4:01 p.m. on Tuesday, as soon as the trade deadline's over, your ass is grass. You would have been way better to say that. Because then that would have motivated a guy who has experience wheeling and dealing in this league with these different GMs. It would have gave him motivation to offload. A guy who has experience. Instead, we sent a rookie out there to do the bidding of Ross, Silman, and Garfinkel, expecting this guy was going to bring back a treasure trove. A treasure trove. A trove of treasures. A treasure chest, however you want to word it. And Grier was already a lackey anyway, so he would have done what Ross wanted. Just a bad move. Because blood was in the water and other GMs were smelling the rookie with blood in the water GM, interim GM. I think you had to trade Jalen Phillips and you got a third round pick. But look at what Howie, one of the best GMs in football did to Champ Kelly. He got Champ Kelly and the Dolphins to pay $5.1255 million, and so the Eagles only have to pay 1.5, and he didn't even give us the Jets' third rounder the Eagles had. He gave us their third rounder, which is going to be, in front of the compensatory picks, but it's still going to be far back in the third round. Like, that's hilarious. And then they were probably just balking and trying to gaslight him and into believing that Minkah wasn't worth what he was asking for and Bradley Chubb wasn't worth anything. I could see it now. Just the Dolphins failed this trade deadline. I mean, what else is there to say? We're back to they can't even tank right. Unbelievable. Anyways, I can't even tank right. Oh my God. Let's get into this article from David Furones about the lack of moves for the Miami Dolphins at the trade deadline. As the NFL's trade deadline came and went at 4 p.m. Tuesday, it turned out the deal involving outside linebacker Jalen Phillips on Monday morning was the only move for the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins went quietly. He should have added quietly into the night on Tuesday without another trade orchestrated by interim general manager Champ Kelly. At 2-7, the Dolphins were expected to make at least one other move, with a number of teams possibly interested in Miami's veteran pieces who could benefit by a flip to a contender while the Dolphins stacked draft capital past the midway point of a highly disappointing season. Miami reportedly fielded interest on wide receiver Jalen Waddle and edge defender Bradley Chubb, according to ESPN, shortly after the deadline, but opted to hold on to both. The Dolphins, who fired ex-GM Chris Grier Friday, made their lone trade deadline move under Kelly on Monday, dealing Phillips to the Eagles for a third-round pick. Some Dolphin players who could have presumably been dealt included Waddle, Chubb, Judon, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Chubb, after missing the 2024 season, recovering from a significant knee injury at the end of 2023, has led the Dolphins in sacks in 2025 with 4. He's been healthy, starting all 9 games for Miami this year with 25 tackles, 5 for loss, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Fitzpatrick has appeared disgruntled since the trade within the final month before training camp, which brought him back to the Dolphins, the team that drafted him in 2018 from the Steelers. The Steelers are 5-3, who got cornerback Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith in the deal and are top of the AFC North, as the Dolphins are stuck at 2-7 and out of the playoff race. Fitzpatrick has 50 tackles with 5 pass breakups, an interception, and a fumble recovery back with Miami. Unbelievable. Judon, a 4-time Pro Bowler who's 33, has barely made an impact with the Dolphins since signing during the preseason. The Phillips trade is expected to create more playing time for second-year pass rusher Chop Robinson, who had 6 sacks as a rookie but has just 1 in 9 games playing behind Chubb and Phillips. And then, much where in the AFC East, the Jets, they headlined much of Tuesday's trade deadline action. Miami's division rival now has 5 first-rounder in the next 2 drafts and 2 second-round selections this coming April. While the Dolphins have remained ahead of the Jets on the field in recent years, Tuesday's dealings were a reminder of how New York still has a much deeper asset pool that could better position themselves in the rebuild. After the deadline, the Dolphins announced that they signed Clarence Lewis to the practice squad. Lewis went undrafted to the Titans earlier this year, coming out of Syracuse, where he finished his college career after spending his first 4 seasons with Notre Dame. So their big move on trade deadline day was adding a body. That was their big move. What a dud of a trade deadline day. And for what? What? You don't want to look weak against the Colts? What do you think? What do you expect to? You expect to beat the Bills this week? You really expect to beat the Bills this week? Like, I don't get it. Again, I wanted Grier gone. I think Grier should be gone, but you got rid of him for this? This is what you got rid of him for? This was your, again, we see non-football minds making football decisions, and it leads to a underwhelming result for the Miami Dolphins. And this time, we just saw it in the trade deadline. Literally. Like, what a failure. We all knew you weren't getting rid of Waddle. But Bradley Chubb, when you take in the cap you would have saved, especially with the cap you gave up to move Jalen Phillips, I don't get it. It's just bad business. And what's crazy is you can't even put the blame on Grier right now. The guy who's running the show with this operation, Mike Florio and Barry Jackson said the same thing, that this is a Ross-led show. He's going to approve any deal. So the business mind is making bad football business decisions. He can't even get the business part right, let alone put the right football minds in place to make these decisions. Ross can't even get the business decisions right in football. What are we supposed to be hopeful for? I mean, I've said it, I've alluded to it, and I'm going to say it again. This team just might not be better off until he goes away. Whether he steps down, whether Father Time stops ticking, whatever the case may be, this team may not be better off until Stephen Ross goes away. The problem is the conductor of the train is a bad driver. And that's just where we're at. And the bad decisions continue on. Grown Man Vlog says, makes it worse. We could win some more games. Yeah, that's why. Like, look at what the Jets have done. They've totally torn apart their defense. They made it even harder for themselves to win. All we did was trade Jalen Phillips. Was Jalen Phillips really doing anything? The guy wasn't finishing sacks. So now what? Chop's going to get the starting time and he's going to finish the sacks? Now we're going to get the guy who finishes the sacks? Like, you needed to strip this team with veterans that you knew weren't coming back. Shout out to Penn. She gifted 5 Phinside The NFL memberships. Elpad, in terms of firing Grier when we did and going with Champ Kelly, he says it made us look desperate when we just needed to wait. Yeah, man, I mean, you could have waited 4 days. You could have waited till 4:01 on Tuesday. And told them straight up, listen, make these deals and you'll keep your job. And in the back of the mind, you don't even have to tell them. In the back of your mind, you can say, yeah, I keep your job for now, and then I'm firing you at the end of the year. I don't know. I would have rather sent the guy with experience out on an ultimatum with his job on the line than Champ Kelly, who has no trade deadline experience. Only time he was interim for the Raiders was after the trade deadline in November, and then they moved on to Tom Telesco in January. So he lasted, 3 months? Not even? I don't know. Bad move. Bad stuff. Guys, over 450 of you in the chat. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. Let's get those likes up right now. All right, let's get those likes up. There's over 450 of you in the chat. Let's get to 200 likes. Smash that like button. We're at about 130. Go ahead and smash that like button. Hey, smash it for me, even though the Dolphins keep breaking our heart. They can't even get a trade deadline right now. Right? Jeez. Can't even get a trade deadline right. Guys, I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming through. Again, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I will see each and every one of you on the next one. Till then, fins up all day, every day. Have a fantastic, fantastic rest of your day.